Welcome to Voice Notes from a Slow Life. I'm Emily, and I'm glad you're here. These are real time reflections on slowing down, mothering gently, and choosing a more intentional life. Let's begin. Today, I was asked why I decided to become a therapist, and that led to a conversation about internalized messages and self worth. And I recognize that I've spoken previously on a video and in a blog post about why I decided to become a therapist for moms, but I've never shared why I became a therapist, why I decided to help people in general. So I want to share a little bit of my story with you today, just the part that I'm ready to share. Now, humans are the worst historians for their own life. That's very well known in the mental health and medical fields. So, meaning that we don't always remember things exactly how they were. You know, we might not remember the right age, year, exact wording. But the important thing, especially when I've worked with clients, whether that's in mentorship or therapy, is that it doesn't matter so much about the facts, but how we've interpreted the events in our lives. And that's how our internalized messaging happens. So when I talk about my experience, it's coming from what I remember, how I've internalized it. So yeah, that's just a caveat that I wanted to throw out there. Now, I want to just share the overarching message of what got me here. So I've always been someone who wanted to help others. That's always been like a key thing for me, always caregiving for my friends. It's just like a key personality trait, I would say. And, but I didn't at that when I was young. It's not like I went, I'm going to be a therapist. That wasn't what crossed my mind. When I was a child, however, I was not really performing well in school in like primary school. I was often, you know, daydreaming. I would daydream to the point where I'd forget we even had book reports to do. I really sucked at spelling, especially French grammar. And I was very much a perfectionist. So I was the type of person who would write and erase, write and erase, write and erase, which means that I often didn't finish tests on time. And so I have a vivid memory of when we used to do dictées, which are like French language testing that we do every week. We would do the testing, so the teacher would say a word and you'd write the word, and then after the test we would hand it to the person next to us, and they would correct it, and we would correct the other person's test. So somebody was always correcting your test, and you were correcting somebody else's test. And the person that I was correcting for, always the same person, was a guy named Zachary, and he was very good in grammar. And so I got very good at writing like the B for him, he did it well, like BA. So my B's were very beautiful, and the person who was correcting mine was most likely getting very good at writing X's, meaning it was not good. I remember because school was so difficult for me, especially the French language testing, I was often ill. And it wasn't like I was faking sick, like I would make myself sick from the anxiety. So I would often be in the infirmary. And my mom worked on things with me to try and get me to be able to manage the anxiety and manage the testing and all that. So that kind of gives you a sense of what my primary school days were. So the mentality I had back then was I'm pretty fucking dumb. That was how I kind of viewed myself. And there was, I was placed in like a specialized support classes. So oftentimes we had me and a couple other students, we had a worker who would remove us from certain classes to go to a special room to work on our projects. It was like my IEP and my individualized like education plan, and I would go and get support there, which was great. Individualized support helped. Now, because I wasn't doing too well and other students were not as well, we had a psychologist come in to assess us. And it was very much, educational assessments, which were, I did not test well. So that was extremely, extremely, extremely stressful for me. And I did very poorly. The psychologist, when he reviewed my results and spoke to my parents, his message to my parents was that I was not highly intelligent. I would not really succeed in school. It would be very difficult for me to succeed in school, especially it'd be difficult for me to graduate from high school. They told my parents to not really bother putting money aside for college or university because the likelihood that I would go would be very low, and that the best outcome for me would be that I'd be able to hold down a job in maybe fast food. Um, and so that that's hard to hear. He also wanted me to go to a specialized school to get specialized support because I was not performing well. And my father is who's passed now. He passed when I was in my like around 10 years old. He also had a difficult time in school. Um, he was a kind of a troublemaker in school for a lot of different reasons. So he was actually graduated out of school, of high school, without being able to read or write. He only learned how to read and write when he was in his 30s. He went to like adult high school. So when the psychologist said that I wasn't really going to go far in the education sense, um, the first gut reaction of my father at the time and was, well, maybe it's kind of the same story as him where I might just have more difficulty and yes, I need more support. The thing is that that psychologist didn't take in consideration all of the external aspects that were happening with me. So that psychologist did the assessment of my school performance, and that was it. What that doesn't show is that, my father was extremely ill. I was seeing him, we go to the hospital often. He would have seizures. He would collapse. He was extremely, extremely ill. I remember having to call um, the um, the ambulance when I was young. Have a vivid memory of me holding my little pink, like stuffy kitty cat named Rosie, hiding behind a reclining chair and calling 911 saying my father is having earthquakes because I was young and I didn't understand seizures, but he was having an earthquake. And so when you have a life where you have a lot of lack of control in one area, it can, you know, impact other areas of your life. And it was impacting my school. So I was very much a perfectionist, erasing and rewriting because I had such lack of control in other aspects of my life that I was doing that there. And then, my daydreaming could have also possibly been dissociation, now that I have words for it. And had the psychologist at the time like even asked about that kind of stuff, maybe the recommendations for my support would be different, you know? Um, but no, it was really just you're not academically inclined and therefore you're not going to go far in life. You need specialized support and there's no hope for the future. And what that can lead to is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So a self-fulfilling prophecy is when you believe something about yourself and so you act in a way that makes it come true. And so what that could have happened is that we kind of just took that at face value. And maybe if I would have just done what he had suggested, go to like specialized school, and my parents hadn't pushed me for higher education and all that, maybe I wouldn't be where I am today. Um, I would have followed the path that he kind of thought I would. Luckily, though, my stepfather at the time had been a teacher for a while, and my aunt was also a teacher. And they were both saying, Emily, does demonstrate a lot of, intellect in different areas when she's not being tested. So one example would be my stepfather was very French, and so when English songs would come up, I would often translate them for him. And also I could hold conversations. I was, was highly intelligent in other ways. It was just in the school, I was not. And the kind of the messaging was like, okay, you can do it. Prove this teacher, this psychologist wrong, and go for it. And so I did. I was like, okay, I'm gonna prove this guy wrong because fuck him. Like I can do this. But at the same time, deep down, I had that messaging that I was dumb. I am dumb, and I'm not as good as everybody else. And you know, but I have to prove myself. I want to be viewed differently. And um, shortly after, my father passed from a brain tumor, but my environment changed. So my father passed. Some of that stress from his illness was gone, and I actually ended up moving to a different school and to a different town fully, and got different kinds of support. Still had my IEP, but like even in sixth grade, before we even moved, I was starting to do better in school. But it kind of put me on a track of just wanting to prove myself really badly, and prove myself to myself, but prove myself to others. And I pushed really hard to do well in school, and it caused quite a bit of anxiety. My parents did not push me. They weren't like, get good grades, do this, do that. They were not forceful like that. It was really because my mom was always like, do your best, like do what you can. That's all you can do. Like as long as you put effort, that's all. That's enough. So it was really internalized. It was really me pushing me to be better. And my mom was like, calm down, girl. Like you got a good grade. And I'm like, no, it's not good enough. So I had really high expectations towards myself, because anything, I guess I was just so afraid of that label of not being intelligent. And so I was really trying to prove myself to everyone. And when you live your life proving yourself to everybody else, it's a recipe for disaster because nothing's ever enough. And so I did well in high school, and I got into the first wave to go to my bachelor's degree in psychology. And the reason why I decided to go in psychology is because at that time when I started to like want to prove that psychologist wrong, I was like, I'm not letting anybody else fucking have to deal with a psychologist like that. I had figured there's a lot of people like that out there, that I wanted to be one of the few good ones. Not few, but at the time that my mentality was that I wanted to be one of the good ones out there that was actually helping kids, helping adults, helping people. So that's why I became a therapist. So I was kind of skimming over that part, but that's why I became a therapist, was because I had such a bad experience with that psychologist that I wanted to become a psychologist. I wanted to assess people, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it right, because obviously this person is not considering the whole person. And I'm like, I'm not going to fucking do that. I'm going to consider the whole person. And so I was going to do it. So, um, but when I was in high school, I realized, okay, shit, I can't be a psychologist because I really am not good in math. And that was a hard pill to swallow because, a lot of psychology is stats and research and all that. And I'm really shit in math. I'm really good in other stuff, but shit in math. But then I was like, okay, there's a lot of other things you can do. Maybe you're not a psychologist, but you're still a therapist. Anyway, so I wanted to become a therapist in the helping professions in any way that I could, because I just figured if there was assholes like that out in the world, I wanted to be a counterbalance. And but at the same time, like that was my goal of being a therapist. But to get into the impact that that had on me also is that I did well in high school, and then I got accepted in the first wave to university. And me and my mom were always talking about how I'm gonna write a letter to that psychologist. I'm gonna be like, you were wrong. Look at me go. Haha. Look at this. And she said, like, are you going to write a letter now that you've graduated high school and got into university? I was like, no, it's not enough. Now I got to do my bachelor's degree. So I did my bachelor's degree, I majored in psychology. I minored in religious studies. I worked hard again, again, pushing myself way too hard to do well. And again, it's like, you're going to write a letter. And at that point, I was like, I'm not going to write a letter to him. I don't give a shit about him. Like, I've proved myself. But I was like, okay, I don't give a shit about this guy. But like, I still had this thing where I'm like, I have to prove myself. Like, this is my whole identity, is like proving myself. And so in everything that I do, I'm just trying to prove myself. So it's like prove myself to, um, my teachers and in my program. And then also when I'm working somewhere, I give 110% to the detriment of myself. And that's because I have internalized messaging of like, okay, prove yourself, show them you're not dumb, give yourself some prestige. I wanted to be seen in a positive light. And, I sometimes still think that I'm not intelligent. Even recently, I had a friend who was like, my God, you're so smart. I'm like, I'm literally not. And she was like, you literally have a master's degree. I'm like, yeah, but like, it's not that, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, shut up. And I'm like, okay. But like that mentality that I'm not smart, like it just, it roots down deep into you. And it gets really difficult to move past. And the reason why I wanted to share that with you, because I want to kind of share why I decided to become a therapist. Um, you know, it's moved on to like me just, I know that I want to help people and this is the way to do it. And I love working one-on-one with people. And I really believe in therapy. I believe in the work that I do. And I know how much talk therapy can help. So that's like why I do it, why I love it, why I am a therapist, and why I'm a mentor as well. Um, but I also wanted to talk about it because a lot of the moms that I work with are people who are high achievers who have been for most of their life, maybe very good in school, maybe well viewed, um, and always looking for the thing that's going to make them worthy, that's going to make them finally truly have a sense of self-worth. The problem is that never comes. No matter what you achieve, the goalpost keeps moving because it never feels like enough. And I have recognized that if you live your life for other people and their views of you, you're never going to feel like it's enough because you're not living a life for you. And so you have to think about, what do you want and how will it serve you? And not about what others are going to think. Because honestly, one thing I've learned about my work, even just working with people one-on-one, is that most of us are not judging the other as much as we're judging ourselves. So people are not thinking about you as much as you think they're thinking about you. And people are worrying about themselves more than anything else. Um, and it's like the whole, when you have a pimple on your face, you think everybody's seeing it, but like most people are not seeing it because they're thinking about the own pimple on their face kind of scenario. And so if you recognize that not all eyeballs are on you and that you can just do your thing, it's so much better. And like even me, like, listen, I'm making a podcast, I post things online. So yeah, there are eyeballs on me. But attention wanes, attention goes away because we are multifaceted. We have other things in our life. So what I would want to close out this conversation with, because it was just like I just wanted to start getting us thinking. I wanted to share about myself. I want you to start thinking also if you have, internalized messages that are impacting the way that you show up in life, the way that you um, meet situations, meet opportunities, the way that you make decisions. Do you have messages that you received when you were young or that you've internalized that impact you? And what are they? And so For me, it's, I'm dumb. I'm not highly intelligent. Um, and I have to show and work hard to prove otherwise because I don't want to be viewed that way. Um, I think, as a therapist, you have to kind of decide, or we have like a theories of change. So what do we think will help people heal and change? And I have always been a firm believer that having awareness is the first step. Like if you're not aware of what's going on in your internal world, it's very hard to then work on it. So awareness is the first step. So I would like for you to just start being aware what's coming up. I wonder if maybe even hearing me made you think of your own situations. And if ever you would like to share and you feel comfortable doing so, um, you can share it in the comments of wherever you're finding this recording, because it can be one, healing for you to share it, and two, it can be healing for someone else to read it. So I'm going to end it off there, and thank you for listening. If this episode spoke to you, it would mean so much if you would follow, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. Until next time, keep living your authentic life.